This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The UAW taking legal action against former President Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Okay, you're all gone.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The FBI is investigating alleged Iranian hacks of both presidential campaigns.
Attempts to interfere are nothing new for the Iranian regime.
I'm Jim Roope.
4 U.S. states hold primaries. The outcome, winners and losers, coming up.
Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz responded to criticism about his military service.
Thank you for your service.
I'm Ed Donahue.
On Wall Street, investors hope yesterday's rally for stocks continues today, and we get more inflation data this morning. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
They found 23,000 pounds of meth hidden in celery at a Georgia's farmer's market. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The owner of X praised his interview with Donald Trump, claiming over 1 billion views. But the United Auto Workers Union is threatening legal action against the former president and Elon Musk over what was said. Correspondent Clayton Neville explains.
The UAW's filed federal labor charges against former President Trump and the owner of X, Elon Musk. Union leadership said in a statement that in an interview broadcast on X this week, Trump and Musk threatened and intimidated workers who the union says stand up for themselves by engaging in protected activity like strikes. This part of that conversation.
I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay, you're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it.
Trump seemingly praised Musk for mass layoffs when he took over X. The president of the UAW, though, ripping into the former president, saying that when the union insists Trump stands against everything it stands for, this is what it's talking about. Meanwhile, the Trump camp pointing to a technical glitch during the X interview. Lara Trump said that, and efforts to sue or criminally charge Trump, interfere with the election.
And there's a massive effort, of course, to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. These people are terrified. This is the deep state. This is the swamp in Washington, D.C. These are the people who are our adversaries in many cases, and they know that the jig is up, the game is over when Donald J. Trump returns to the White House.
The RNC co-chair spoke with Fox's Hannity.
They have had a free pass for 3.5 years. The people who want to do nefarious activities to us here in America, to our allies around the world, they've gotten a free pass and a free ride, and they would like another 4 years of that with Kamala Harris at the helm.
If that happens, Trump says he'll leave the country. He told Musk during the interview that if something happens with the election, the two will meet next time in Venezuela, which he said would then be a far safer place than the U.S. I'm Clayton Neville.
The FBI has launched an investigation into alleged Iranian hack attempts targeting both the Trump and the Biden-Harris presidential campaigns. Jim Roope has the latest.
The Washington Post reports that hackers were able to compromise the personal email account of longtime Republican and Trump operative Roger Stone. The hackers reportedly used Stone's email account to try to access the account of Trump campaign officials in June. According to the Post, reporters from the paper, as well as reporters from Politico and New York Times, have received emails from a mysterious person known as Robert, offering up internal Trump campaign documents, including a multi-page report that allegedly details vulnerabilities in Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. State Department spokesman Vedant Patel says while the alleged hacking is concerning, it's not surprising.
Attempts to interfere in U.S. elections are nothing new for the Iranian regime, which, from our vantage point, has undermined democracies or attempted to.
Democrat Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the country cannot let its guard down when it comes to cybersecurity so close to the election.
So we have to stand firm to ensure that our cybersecurity can withstand such intrusions as we head into November.
You may recall back in 2016 the so-called Russian hacks, from which alleged documents were published by WikiLeaks and gobbled up by the press. In this case, however, nothing offered to the press in this alleged hack has been published. Outlets seem to be taking a breath and not jumping to publish for the sake of publishing. As the Post writes, reporters are seemingly not as interested about what is offered in the hack as they are about the hack itself. this continues to unfold. I'm Jim Roope.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. It's Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed, only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. Stolen valor claims over Harris VP pick when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning, another intense summer scorcher in the South. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton with the forecast.
As a large area of high pressure holds largely in place across the southern United States today, the latest round of heat brings highs near or above the century mark from the southern plains to western and southern Arkansas and areas south and east all the way into western Florida. A humid air mass over some of these same areas will mean AccuWeather real field temperatures from 110 to 115 degrees from the coast of Mississippi, Louisiana, and eastern Texas to points inland through central Arkansas. For the western states, dry conditions can be expected for just about every place west of the Rockies, but a storm tracking across the Intermountain West will mean some spotty afternoon thunderstorms from Colorado and New Mexico northward into Montana. However, the coverage of this activity is not looking nearly as expansive as what occurred on Tuesday. A more significant risk for thunderstorms, some of which can be severe this afternoon and tonight, will play out over the north central plains, where thunderstorms may bring flooding downpours, strong winds, hail, and tornadoes from central and southern Minnesota southward through Iowa and into far northern Oklahoma. Eastern parts of this zone may even face a similar threat on Thursday as the disturbance heads into the Midwest. In the east, a storm over the southeast brings the risk for mainly afternoon thunderstorms from southern North Carolina to much of Georgia and all of Florida, while a cold front diving across New England sparks some spotty thunder showers from Maine to perhaps northwestern New Jersey. Between these two zones, a continuation of mainly rain-free weather can be expected today. In Wichita, Kansas, expect a breezy day with sunshine, some patchy clouds at a high of 100. For Augusta, Georgia, look for clouds and sun with a stray afternoon thunderstorm and a high of 86. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Two members of the Democrats' squad have already been voted out by their constituents in the 2024 primaries, and in the most watched race of the Tuesday night primary, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was able to hold off a strong challenge and will face off with Republican Dalia Al-Aqidi in Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. Former University of Minnesota and NBA player Royce White was declared the winner for the GOP, and he'll square off with incumbent Amy Klobuchar for the United States Senate. In Wisconsin, Eric Hovde, who had the backing of Donald Trump, won his GOP primary by a landslide and will face incumbent Democrat Tammy Baldwin for the U.S. Senate. In Vermont, Esther Charleston will represent Democrats against incumbent Republican Phil Scott for that state's governor's race. In Connecticut, Democrat Chris Murphy ran unopposed for his Senate seat and will now face Republican Matthew Corey in November. America in the Morning continues. Kamala Harris' choice to be her VP has been fighting against claims regarding his military record. And at his first solo campaign event in California yesterday, he defended what he called his damn proud 3-decade stint in the National Guard. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz responded to criticism about his military service from Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance. Vance made the comments last week, shortly after Vice President Kamala Harris picked the Minnesota governor as her running mate.
What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage.
Vance questioned Walz's record and the implication he had served in a combat zone.
When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him.
Speaking to union members in Los Angeles,
these guys are even attacking me for my record of service. And I just want to say, I'm proud to serve my country, and I always will be.
Walz says he is proud of his service to his country.
You should never denigrate another person's service record. To anyone brave enough to put on that uniform for our great country, including my opponent, I just have a few simple words. Thank you for your service and sacrifice.
The campaign says Walz misspoke when he said he carried weapons in a war and did not see combat during his time in the Minnesota National Guard.
I'm going to say it again as clearly as I can. I am damn proud of my service to this country.
I'm Ed Donahue.
Backlash from the Trump-Musk sit-down when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com. With markets and more, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a nice rally for stocks yesterday. Investors loved the tamer than expected inflation data at the wholesale level. The consumer data comes this morning. The S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ have each had 4 winning days in a row. The Dow was up 400 points yesterday.
We are still a few percent below the highs, the record highs of a few weeks ago in the S&P 500, in the NASDAQ. The market behavior itself has been very encouraging. Every day without a surprise has meant the market makes a little more progress.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Chipotle shares fell yesterday while Starbucks shares soared. On news, the Chipotle CEO, who turned that chain around, is going over to run Starbucks to try to fix the coffee giant. Some critics say it's slow, dirty, and expensive at Starbucks, and people are excited about Brian Niccol coming in.
Look, this guy's a dream come true, okay? I mean, he came in at Chipotle when Chipotle, I don't know if you remember, was in disarray.
Yeah.
And he fixed the organization. Well, that's what Starbucks needs. When you get someone this monumental running the company, there's hope for change.
CNBC's Mad Money host Jim Cramer. Home Depot with a grim sales forecast. It says consumers are just being more choosy about their spending. It was rocking in the pandemic, but now it's hurting as the housing market's slower.
Now, Home Depot, the home improvement category, benefited significantly during the pandemic. Demand trends spiked higher. I think now we're just in that post-pandemic reset.
Oppenheimer's Brian Nagel on CNBC.
The UAW apparently honked off at Musk and Trump.
You know, in that delayed chat on Twitter, now X, on Monday night, when Twitter owner Elon Musk had a live conversation with the former president, the United Auto Workers Union was listening, and it's talking about how illegal their union-busting comments were, because they cheered on the practice of firing employees who threatened to strike.
The UAW is suing, threatening legal action, Musk and Donald Trump over those comments, saying it's anti-union, you can't threaten to fire or fire people for going on strike or organizing. We know that Musk has been largely resistant to unionization within Tesla, even though that's still trying to happen.
CNBC's Steve Kovac. On today's watch list, we get the latest on consumer inflation with the July CPI, the Consumer Price Index, this morning. Earnings are coming from Cisco, UPS, and Cardinal Health. We find out how many people applied for a mortgage last week.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, historic bust by the DEA after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. They say fences make good neighbors. It's a little too late for that now, as a Florida jury decides whether a woman was justified in fatally shooting her neighbor during a dispute last year. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
The ongoing dispute between the neighbors led to the death of A.J. Owens, who was shot and killed in June of last year. Defendant Susan Lawrence, through her attorney Morris Carranza, said she feared for her life as Owens pounded on her front door.
What the evidence will show and will be presented in this trial is that in her mind, in her soul, in her core, Susan Lawrence felt she had no choice.
Adam Smith, the assistant state attorney, in his opening statement.
We're going to present the evidence to you in this case. And after the evidence is presented, we are going to come back to you and ask that you find the defendant guilty.
The charge is manslaughter by use of a firearm and carries up to 30 years in prison. I'm Shelley Adler.
It was an historic bust by the Drug Enforcement Administration. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports that authorities have arrested a Mexican national in Atlanta accused of trying to sell over a ton of methamphetamines worth millions of dollars hidden with celery at a farmer's market.
Special Agent in Charge Robert Murphy with the Drug Enforcement Administration says they found meth hidden in celery at a Georgia's farmer's market.
This was contained within a cover load of celery. That was what was hiding it. Obviously, we threw away the celery, so there's no concerns of buying celery at the grocery store.
A semi-trailer coming across the Mexican border raised suspicion. Agents then zeroed in on the Atlanta State Farmers Market in Forest Park, where a Mexican citizen was arrested. The DEA says it's one of the largest seizures of its kind. Sound courtesy WSB. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, August 14th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Ukraine's top military commander has said his forces now control over 350 miles of Russia's neighboring Kursk region. I'm Karen Shamas.
A police officer in Ohio indicted on murder charges. I'm Clayton Neville.
Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris agree on one thing.
No tax on tips.
I'm Julie Walker.
The State Department says the U.S. has approved $20 billion in arms sales to Israel. I'm Norman Hall.
A soldier guilty of selling secrets.
A career first for one of baseball's biggest stars. I'm John Stolnis.
Jimmy Kimmel gets candid on why he won't host the Oscars next year. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton is tracking a storm system that could produce more severe weather today.
As a cold front continues to progress across parts of the northern and central plains through the day today, it will produce the greatest risk for thunderstorms to turn severe from the Oklahoma Panhandle to the far southeastern corner of North Dakota and in points eastward from southern Minnesota to northwestern Missouri. Within this area, storms this afternoon and into the night will be capable of producing downpours that lead to flash flooding, along with some hail, localized damaging wind gusts, and even some tornadoes. To the south of that zone, the heat will be the story instead, as a fairly persistent dome of high pressure over the southern states continues to produce sizzling conditions. Highs from the Florida Panhandle to southern Kansas and across much of Texas are expected to be within a few degrees on either side of the 100-degree mark, with AccuWeather real field temperatures in the 110 to 115-degree range from central Arkansas through Louisiana and portions of southeast Texas, thanks to the high humidity that will be in place today. In the east, the morning hours look to be dry for most places from the northeast through the mid-Atlantic, but a pair of cold fronts over northern New England and the southeast will produce at least spotty coverage of some afternoon thunderstorms. Areas from northeastern Pennsylvania through western Massachusetts and across Maine, as well as a swath extending from Florida to far southern North Carolina, stand the best chance of some downpours from this activity later today. In the west, a disturbance brings thundershowers from eastern Montana southward across parts of Colorado and New Mexico, but most of the region will be rain-free through the day with high pressure in place. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The president of Ukraine says that his forces now control 74 Russian settlements in the Kursk region, double the number from yesterday after Ukrainian forces mounted a surprise attack against Kremlin troops and drove deep into Russian territory. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports 2 U.S. senators met with Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, praising his nation for not backing down from Vladimir Putin's war machine.
I've spoken with my staff on a regular basis, probably every 4 or 5 hours for the last 6 or 8 days. And it's creating a real dilemma for Putin.
Ukraine's top military commander has said his forces now control over 350 miles of Russia's neighboring Kursk region. General Alexander Syrsky spoke via video call in a military briefing with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He added that fighting continued on the front line and that everything was under control. Russian forces are still scrambling to respond to the surprise Ukrainian attack after almost a week of fierce fighting.
Well, congratulations on Kursk.
Thank you very much.
Good work.
On a visit to Kyiv, U.S. Senators Richard Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham congratulated Zelensky on the military move.
I'm so proud of you, your people, your military, your leadership, your country. You are under siege unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime. They were predicting in Washington that Kyiv would fall in 4 days, the whole country would fall in 3 weeks. Well, they were wrong. And here we are all these months, years later, you people are suffering, they're resilient, and you're in Russia. Bold and brilliant. Well done.
In a video address, Zelensky justified the incursion into Russian territory, saying it's only fair to destroy Russian terrorists where they are, where they launch their strikes from. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the attack on Russian territory is an attempt by Kyiv to stop Moscow's offensive in the eastern Ukraine's Donbas region and gain leverage in possible future peace talks. More than 100,000 civilians have fled the area since the fighting began.
So 2.5 years later, you're still standing and you're in Russia. Remind me not to invade Ukraine.
I'm Karen Shamas.
A police officer in Ohio is indicted following last summer's murder of a pregnant woman outside a grocery store. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Blindon Township Officer Connor Grubb indicted on 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. The charges stem from an encounter last August in a grocery store parking lot. The officer approached Takaya Young, who was pregnant at the time. He knocked on her car door after she was reported as a theft suspect.
Out of the car. Out of the car.
Why?
Out of the car.
Why?
They said you stole stuff, do not leave. Get out of the Then get out. No, then get out. Get out of the car.
Takaya Young's grandmother spoke with reporters after the indictments came down.
And she said, "Are you going to shoot me?" And she cruised real slow in that car, turned to the right, away from him, and then he still jumped in front of the car, jumped on the car, and shot her.
She said she's looking forward to seeing Grubb at trial.
I want him to see my eyes and see my heart and see what I feel and see if he even got a heart.
Blindon Township Chief of Police John Belford says the disciplinary process can start now.
We're not passing any judgment on whether Officer Grubb acted properly. We haven't seen the evidence. However, since people who've been indicted may not legally possess a firearm, the indictment against him leaves us with no choice but to immediately begin the disciplinary process.
Lawyers for Grubb say evidence will show the shooting was justified and called the grand jury process in Ohio broken. I'm Clayton Neville.
A special prosecutor in Kansas says an ex-police chief who led a raid on his hometown newspaper now faces charges for those actions. Correspondent Mike Hempen has the latest.
Former Marion Police Chief Gideon Cody is accused of knowingly or intentionally influencing a potential witness for an investigation to withhold information from authorities. Cody led a raid last year of the Marion County Record and the home of its publisher. He justified the raid by saying he had evidence the newspaper, its publisher, and one of its reporters committed identity theft or other computer crimes. In verifying the authenticity of a copy of a business owner's state driving record provided to the newspaper by an acquaintance. The record showed that she had potentially driven without a valid license for years. The prosecutor's report concluded no crime was committed and that Cody reached an erroneous conclusion because of a poor investigation. I'm Mike Hempen.
Among the stories we're covering next, U.S. weapons sale to Israel and a major hacking group busted. Part of what you'll hear next when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Well, there's actually something that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump can agree on, as both presidential candidates have slightly differing proposals to end federal taxes on tips. However, as correspondent Julie Walker reports, no matter which candidate wins the White House, both of their plans would be difficult to enact.
Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris agree on one thing.
No tax on tips. Do we like that?
Eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
But enacting it is another story, says tax expert and Professor James Hines, Jr.
We would need rules to try to distinguish it. It's possible to draft rules. Would it be a mess? Yes.
Both candidates have plans with sparse details. Hines suggesting millions would try to game the system by changing their pay structure.
If we have an exclusion for tips, then we have to distinguish tips from other forms of compensation. And that's extremely difficult.
Many experts say tax-free tips would only give limited help to low-wage workers. Harris also calling for an increase in minimum wage. So far, that's not on Trump's platform.
We've taxed tips for a long, long time. Congress has known all about this. They've not chosen to change it. And one possibility is, no matter who wins, they don't change it. But I guess we'll find out.
I'm Julie Walker.
The Biden administration has given the go-ahead for a massive $20 billion in weapons sales to Israel. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
The State Department says the U.S. has approved $20 billion in arms sales to Israel, including scores of fighter jets and advanced air-to-air missiles. Congress was notified of the impending sale, which includes more than 50 F-15 fighter jets. The long-term sale comes at a time of intense concern that Israel may become involved in a wider Middle East war.
Getting hard. We'll see what Iran does, and we'll see what happens if there's any attack. But I'm not giving up.
The Biden administration has had to balance its continued support for Israel with a growing number of calls from lawmakers and the U.S. public to curb military support there due to the high number of civilian deaths in Gaza. I'm Norman Hall.
An Army soldier has pleaded guilty to charges that accuse him of selling sensitive information related to U.S. military capabilities. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer has the latest.
Prosecutors say 24-year-old Sergeant Corbin Schultz, who had a top-secret security clearance, received at least 14 payments totaling $42,000 for documents addressing topics ranging from rocket systems to Chinese military tactics. The indictment says that Schultz was initially asked to provide documents detailing lessons that could be learned from Russia's war with Ukraine and how those lessons could be applied to the U.S. in helping Taiwan in the event of an attack. It was then suggested that Schultz could earn more money if he handed over internal-only material rather than just unclassified documents. Schultz pleaded guilty to all charges against him and will be sentenced on January 23, 2025. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A Texas church where more than 24 worshipers were killed in a 2017 mass shooting is being demolished. But as correspondent Jackie Quinn reports, the families of the victims who lost their lives in the house of worship do not want the church to be torn down.
It was November 5th, 2017. A gunman opened fire at the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. Then Associate Pastor Mark Collins spoke at a vigil that week.
Satan got one play, and then he fumbled the football.
26 people, including an unborn baby, died that day in the small church south of San Antonio. This worshiper, Terry Smith, last month,
this is where all of us go when we're missing our loved ones,
was among those objecting to the demolition, which was first announced in 2021.
We feel their spirits in there. This church has been here for a very long time, and we all strongly feel that the church protected everybody in there. I'm saddened that they didn't reach out to the community.
A group of family members went to court and was granted an injunction, but another court paved the way for the structure to come down. I'm Jackie Quinn.
America in the Morning continues. Global ransomware group Dispossessor has been caught and dismantled by German and U.S. authorities, giving hundreds of companies a bit of breathing space and dozens of countries a sigh of relief. Here's Chuck Palm with that story in today's Tech Report.
Global cyber hacker gang and ransomware group Radar/Dispossessor has finally been taken down by U.S. and German authorities. Dispossessor has targeted at least dozens of companies in sectors including healthcare and transportation, and was led by hacker codename Brain, continued to target small and medium-sized companies, initially focusing in the US and then expanding globally. The group, initially founded in August of last year, has been under investigation and identified at least 43 companies as victims from countries including Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Honduras, India, Canada, Croatia, Peru, and Poland, as well as United Kingdom and United Arab Emirates. It is still suspected that a large number of companies have very likely also been affected and are as yet unknown to authorities. And as a callback to stories from earlier this year, the group has been known to target U.S. hospital groups. Servers and domains belonging to the group in Germany, U.S., and Great Britain have been dismantled, according to authorities. I'm Chuck Palm.
John Stolness has our midweek check of sports.
New York Yankees outfielder and former Washington Nationals star Juan Soto has done a lot on the baseball field in his career, but until last night, he had never hit 3 home runs in a single game.
Soto drives it in the air, deep right field. He has done it again. Juan Soto, his first career 3-home run game.
The call on the Yes Network, Soto powering New York to a 4-1 win over the White Sox. 3-time WNBA All-Star Dearica Hamby is suing the league and her former team, the Las Vegas Aces, in federal court for discrimination, saying they traded her to the Los Angeles Sparks in January of 2023 because she was pregnant. Her lawyers say the trade resulted in lost promotional and endorsement opportunities and other hardships. Vikings rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who dazzled in the team's first preseason game over the weekend, will undergo knee surgery this week after suffering a meniscus tear. Head coach Kevin O'Connell tells NFL.com they don't know how long he'll be out for.
Get this procedure done. We'll make sure that we're doing the right things for him to have the best possible recovery when that takes place. We do not know. Like I said, it would be speculating.
McCarthy could miss a few weeks or a few months, depending on the severity. And a new study by Sportico finds the Dallas Cowboys have become the first team in the NFL to surpass a team value of $10 billion. They're worth $10.32 billion, up 12% from a year ago, and $2.5 billion more than the Los Angeles Rams, who have jumped ahead of the New York Giants. The Cincinnati Bengals have the lowest value at $4.71 billion. And that's your look at sports.
Thank you, John. When we return on America in the Morning, new fears for Taylor Swift concert goers after these messages. Back now on America in the Morning, Swifties encouraged to be vigilant. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports on Taylor Swift's upcoming concerts in London and the new security measures in place after her concerts in Vienna, Austria, were abruptly canceled due to the threat of a terror attack.
There's heightened security in London as Taylor Swift starts a run of 5 concerts there starting Thursday. 3 suspects were detained in Vienna for allegedly planning an attack at her concerts there. Tracy Hallowell, the director of tourism at Visit London, says the city is used to putting on big events.
You'll see there is a higher police presence on the ground, and that's really just to make sure that everything runs smoothly and that London is looking after our visitors.
Meanwhile, Wembley Stadium is discouraging what fans call tailgating, hanging outside the stadium to listen as Swift plays. The venue says non-ticket holders will be urged to move on. A lawyer for one of the three suspects arrested for allegedly planning an attack at Taylor Swift's concerts in Vienna says his client did not have the means to carry it out. Attorney Werner Tomanek, who represents the 19-year-old Austrian man considered the main suspect in the case, tells the Austria press agency he has yet to access the case files, but he calls the attack plans pure fantasies. Tomanek acknowledges his client appears to have mental problems and made an online pledge of loyalty to the Islamic State group, but deleted it. Tomanek says officials are exaggerating the case to get new surveillance powers. Austrian authorities say the man, who is not named in accordance with privacy laws, confessed to planning an attack at Swift's concert in Vienna last week. They say they found chemical substances and technical devices at his home. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
TV host Jimmy Kimmel says he did his time. America in the Morning's Kevin Carr reports on why the comedian says he won't host the Oscars.
Jimmy Kimmel recently announced he would not host the upcoming Academy Awards. On the Politickin' podcast with California Governor Gavin Newsom, he explained his decision.
I did 2 years, went well. I did another 2 years, it went well. I figured I'd take a little break.
Kimmel had previously hosted the ceremony 4 times, including the last 2 years. The time commitment and workload is a lot to juggle, Kimmel explained.
It's hard. It's a lot of work, and the show suffers a little bit, to be honest, your nightly show, because when I'm focused on the Oscars, I'm less focused on the show.
Comedian John Mulaney has also turned down the job, which Kimmel said offers mixed rewards.
They say it's a thankless job, and I wouldn't necessarily describe it like that, because when it goes well, it isn't, but it's a tough spot to be in.
This past year, the Golden Globes faced a similar crisis finding a host, with multiple celebrities turning down the gig. Comedian Joe Coy ended up taking the reins less than 2 weeks before the ceremony, and the result was less than perfect.
Yo, I got the gig 10 days ago. You want a perfect monologue? Yo, shut up.
The Academy still has some options, which may include moving away from a comedian. However, Kimmel said the problem might be lack of interest.
I think there are a lot of people who would be good hosts of the Oscars. It's just a matter of most of them don't want to do it.
The clock is ticking with the Oscars scheduled for Sunday, March 2nd. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.